The joke is on Ari Shaffir.
Ari Shaffir is an unapologetically edgy, crass, and shocking comedian who
Crass.
refuses to be silenced no matter how much backlash he gets.
Hindi daw drug
Unsurprisingly, many see him as a disgusting bully, whereas others see him as almost a saving grace for comedy, based on the idea that comedians should be able to say anything they want, that no topic, no matter how controversial, is off limits while delivering jokes. With podcasts becoming more and more popular, the line between jokes and reality is almost non-existent. As they broadcast thousands of hours of unfiltered conversations, they slowly expose their reality behind the act. Over the past decade, Ari has acted on and openly admitted to suspicious behavior that now even his fans are starting to feel
that is not good at all.
uneasy about. Ari Shaffir was born in New York City but raised in North Carolina into a Jewish family of Romanian Jewish descent. His father was a Holocaust survivor, which is why Ari was essentially exiled from his family after he told his father he lost his faith in Judaism.
Did you talk to your parents about it?
Yeah, I came out of the closet.
Okay.
As it were.
How did that go?
Not that great. My father said I was lower than a dog.
Wow.
Even a dog believes in God.
Jeez, okay.
Ari grew up watching shows like Live from the Laugh Factory and Johnny Carson, dreaming of doing stand-up himself one day. He graduated college, turned 25 years old, and decided it was time to move to Los Angeles and finally give himself a shot at his dream. He applied to the iconic Laugh Factory, who at the time was hosting acts like Bob Saget, Adam Sandler, Jimmy Fallon, and Roseanne, just to name a few. On his way to the factory, he drove past the Comedy Store, a smaller club that he was unfamiliar with. Ari decided he would just toss in an application there, where he eventually got his first job answering the phones. Mitzi Shore, the renowned owner of the Comedy Store, would advise Ari on his comedy showcases, and even let him work the doors so he could watch other comedians and learn from them. Ari sat and watched emerging talents such as Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz, Bobby Lee, and Sebastian Maniscalco dominate the stage every night. After 4.5 years, Mitzi eventually made Ari a paid regular at the club. He was now officially a full-time stand-up comic, but needed to push the boundaries to compete with the all-stars that were emerging out of LA. Ari produced a short video series titled The Amazing Racist in 2004. The title was a spin on The Amazing Race, and Ari is acting in a manner which is overtly and ironically racist. The show was featured on National Lampoon's Lost Reality, a DVD compilation of reality shows and episodes that networks wouldn't dare to air on TV.
Yeah, there's like a movie for that.
Ari wouldn't gain much
Lampoon Vacation or something
from this until years after YouTube launched. Fans of the skits were going viral after uploading
maybe it's a different video.
They ripped from the DVD.
Sorry, boy. Man, it's hotter in Africa out there. What's up, Fat Albert? Listen, I need a couple lighters. You got a couple lighters?
You walk around with that shit on. You want a motherfucking lighter from this? Do you know what you are?
Today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna with the lowest of the low. Mexicans. Let's go. Let's go sneak in the kitchen, see who we can with. You working hard over here?
Okay, this is hilarious.
Right. Hey! No, it's okay, go ahead. It's wet. It's got a wet back. It's true. Don't work so hard. Take a break. Take a siesta. Come on, it's not a big deal. Just lie down. Oh. Where do you guys keep the babies? I know you'll have 20 babies. Where do you keep them?
It seems like some of the bits feature paid actors who poorly react to Ari's behavior, especially when you consider the multiple different perfect camera angles which are often in front of the subject's face. Although The Amazing Racist was a less funny and less creative version of The Chappelle Show, the desire for Americans to indulge in racist humor was apparently very strong, because Ari was approached by fellow comedian Vince Offer to do a reboot of The Amazing Racist in 2013. Vince Offer, who many know as the ShamWow guy, was producing a movie called Inappropriate Comedy, which starred Michelle Rodriguez, Lindsay Lohan, and Oscar winner Adrian Brody. Ari had a larger budget this time around, which he didn't spend on a team to write better jokes, but rather costumes and gimmicks to enhance the same surface-level stereotypes.
Can I interest you guys in a boat ride? We're giving away free boat rides today. We're trying to get, what do you guys call yourself, African Americans to back to Africa. You know, where you're from.
Alright,
what are you talking about? We got you lots of American jobs where you can
good one.
the corn and the stick, and you save up money, dinero, you buy a lowrider, and just ruin the neighborhood. Bring property values down for everybody. Okay, well, enjoy yourself. I got one for you, bro.
Where's my bounty?
Sir, don't get out of the car.
I f***ing got one.
Sir,
Find a black guy to park that. Woo! Better luck next time, Paco.
Just like the National Lampoon Lost Reality movie, clips from the
There's a Scoopy.
Inappropriate comedy movie would also be uploaded to YouTube, securing millions of views almost every time.
It's just you're driving really f***ing dangerous right now. Please, just try to concentrate on the road. Open your eyes.
I don't know if this is safe.
It's please. It's safer than having your
okay,
eyes half
good.
closed. So that eye's way better, right? You can see better out of that eye now.
I guess so, yeah.
While some
Yes, to be scripted,
say
bro.
these videos are just jokes featuring paid actors who signed waivers approving of the comedy,
No, sorry, actually does that.
others, even as far as back as a decade, just couldn't find the humor in the blatant racism. Piggybacking off the momentum, Ari released his first stand-up album, Revenge for the Holocaust, in 2012, which reached #1 in
What?
the iTunes and Amazon Comedy Albums chart. Then he produced his first stand-up special, Passive Aggressive. Ari was respected by his comedy peers. One particular comedian, Joe Rogan, took a liking to him. In 2010, Joe invited Ari on the 3rd ever episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Ari was a guest in 9 of the first 100 episodes and became a pivotal member of the JRE community, which would eventually become the #1 podcast in the world. Slowly throughout the 2010s, comedians hosting podcasts became more and more common, since they all realized how Joe Rogan's stand-up audiences started increasing as his podcast became more popular. This would be the beginning of Ari showing his dark side. On an episode of Punch Drunk Sports, one of Ari's now defunct podcasts, he berated his employee and producer, known as The Fat Man, for accidentally making an error that led to Ari not being able to take calls from viewers on the air.
We have the show, it was recorded, the audio is on, fans can hear it. It was just, that was my fault.
But we couldn't do any of the calls we wanted for the 100 episodes.
Like you hit a switch
Right.
that had big X on it and tape all around that said, do not touch this button, never touch this button.
Okay, first of all, hold on.
Single notice, he wouldn't have done it. If you prepared at all, he wouldn't have done
There
it.
was notice on that thing. That thing
Saying
says
how
right
to
on
do
it.
it, saying how to take
It's
phone
really
calls.
dark down there. I
Always
couldn't see-
taped up.
Saying don't touch or actually how to do something. Not what not to do or what actually to do. Because he couldn't figure out what to do.
What is he?
Telling
Okay.
him what not to do is the same as telling him what to do. Do not do this. At the very least, do not ever.
And that's how we're
There's a
supposed to
big
take
X on
phone
the
calls for
button.
100th episode? That's how we're supposed to take phone calls? Do not do? That's supposed to help us?
That's the phone line. That was
You
not
asshole. I'm glad I never learned your name.
Ari continued to scold the man and let him know just how much he screwed up.
Hey, fat man, go home. Get out and go home. Go take a smoke break for 2 hours.
Okay, this is kind of rude
You're not
now.
wanted here. You're adding nothing. Go home. I'm not sorry that I'm hurting you. Get the f out of here. Leave. Just leave if you're not going to help. Fix the f***ing phones or leave.
I got it. I got the show.
Are you fixing the phones?
man,
You got the
okay.
show. All right, fat man, get out. You're just a distraction. Get the
I
f
don't
out.
even know how to fix that.
All you do is give us bad drops. Get the f out or fix it.
Yeah, this guy comes out, huh?
Are you moving to fix it or get out? It should be one or the other right now.
fix it.
Then
I'm
get
driving
the f
for a
out.
week.
Then go home. Get the f out and go home.
Judge a man by how he treats
And the guy on the back.
his subordinates, not his equals. However, this blow-up is a minor form of aggression compared to the violent attack he committed on fellow comedian Bobby Lee many years later. But before we get into that, a word from today's sponsor, Rocket Money. The other day I wasted hours trying paid regular on Comedy Central. Then in 2017, he released
Cool.
Double Negative on Netflix, which consisted of 2 45-minute shows. And it was around 2017 where the Joe Rogan effect really started to blossom. Podcast comedians started to emerge from the deep corners of the internet to the mainstream. Tom Segura, Theo Vaughn, Brennan Shaw, Bert Kreischer, Bobby Lee, and so many others saw their viewership exponentially increase. In May of 2017, Bobby shared a brutal story of a few interactions with Ari Shaffir that seemed too vicious to be true, but it was. It all began when Bobby was performing at the Comedy Store one night, and fellow comedian Ron Peterson, who Bobby worked with on
Is it about Andreas?
TV at the time, came up and asked him a question.
Well, I was at the Comedy Store one night, and he goes, "Who's that on stage?" I go, "That's Natasha Leggero." He goes, "She's hot." I go, "Yeah, but she lives with Ari Shaffir." Ron Peterson goes, "All right." And then a couple hours later, I was driving him back to the hotel where we were staying at, and he goes, "I got her number." I go, "Yeah, but she's seeing my friend Ari." He's like, "Yeah, but she's gonna go on." So she starts like going to like plays with him, dinners behind Ari's back, right? And then out of nowhere, Ari calls me. "She left me, dude." I go, "Yeah, but," she goes, "You set them up."
Bobby didn't necessarily feel like he was doing anything wrong, but he did try to convince Ron that asking for Natasha's number was a bad idea. But Ari was irrational and emotional and gave Bobby an insane ultimatum.
If you don't do this for me right now, this thing I'm going to ask you to do, I know that you set them up.
Whoa.
What was the thing?
Break into his office.
Okay, this
At Mad TV.
Yeah.
Go into his
actually insane.
computer and steal the emails between Ron and
Oh, wow.
and
That's some intense
Natasha.
shit.
So I go, I can't break into his fucking office at Mad TV.
After refusing to commit the felony, Ari got violent.
So I go, no, I'm not going to do that. And he goes, then you set them up. So that Friday, I show up at the Comedy Store and I'm checking in at the
Is this guy even
counter.
good?
Punches me in the face.
Like for real punches you.
Yes. I fall to the ground and he kicks me in the face like 20 times. Now I'm bleeding. But then as I get up, I hear my name being called
20
on
times?
stage, and I go up on stage.
And did you talk about it or?
I only went up for 1 minute,
Yeah.
and I go, that guy right there. You know what I mean? I'm bleeding from the face. He beat the shit out of me. You know what I mean? Like I called him out. Ari Shaffir.
The club manager convinced Bobby that he shouldn't press charges and that Ari was just emotional, so Bobby obliged. Then the following week,
Nah.
he got assaulted again.
A week later, I'm walking down the hallway at the Comedy Store. He lunges at me, right? And he starts strangling me in the fucking hallway. And he's squeezing, and then my neck starts bleeding because he has his nails gouged into my fucking neck.
But it didn't stop there. All while this conflict was going on, Ari Shaffir successfully secured a role on Carlos Mencia's Mind of Mencia show, which blended comedy skits and live stand-up. This would have been a pretty good gig for a comedian at the time. However, Carlos was out of town, and when he returned, he heard about what happened to Bobby Lee. Mencia called up Ari, telling him that because he beat up Bobby, he will be removed from the show. In Ari's mind,
Remove
Bobby was
that.
sabotaging first his personal life and now his comedy career, prompting him to attack Bobby yet again.
So then I show up
That times
at the
is
Comedy Store after he gets fired.
actual punch back.
Mind him and see ya. Like I park the car, I close the door, I hear and then no running because he's in the air.
Doing a Superman punch?
Yeah. He does a Superman punch from behind. Pap! I fall to the ground, right? I just run straight to the office, screaming. And I try to call 911.
Because of this situation, Ari was banned from the Comedy Store, the club that
Should
kickstarted
be.
his whole career. For the next few years, Ari would bully Bobby any chance he could, calling him every sort of insult whenever they passed by each other. And for the longest time, Bobby could never get through to him that it wasn't his fault. It took 5 years for Ari to realize Bobby had nothing to do with it and that he was overly emotional, and they finally settled their fairly one-side beef. But then we learned that Bobby Lee kind of twisted the story a little bit. It turns out Ron Peterson was someone that Bobby needed to be friends with to help his career, and Bobby was actually calling Ari over and over to find out if him and Natasha were broken up, so that Ron could make his move. Additionally, when Ari first attacked Bobby, it was because Bobby was egging him on, getting in his face, and Ari gave him a fair warning.
And then I saw you at the store.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, dude, like, it hit me now where you were on this. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Oh,
mad.
this over again.
And you're like, and then the way you were smiling, like, can I just say one thing? Let
right.
me just say one
Oh,
thing. And I was like,
God.
Bobby, get the f away from me. Get the f away
and you
from
know
me.
what? I'll admit I did that.
And you're like, let me just say, I was like, I don't think you hitting, like, how much is this hurting me? You're like, let me just tell you one thing. I'm like, dude, get the f away or I'm going to hit you. And then you kept doing it. And then I just punched you and you fell. So you didn't even give me the satisfaction of fighting back.
But you kicked me while I was down there.
Yeah, well, you were down.
Bobby twisted the story to make Ari seem like a total psychopath attacking people unprovoked. But at the end of the day, Ari still violently unleashed his anger on a guy who had basically nothing to do with his girlfriend cheating on him. And you would think that
There's a man who shouldn't punch.
Shaffir got more famous, he would be more careful of what he says and does. But that couldn't be further from reality. On a 2018 episode of the Punch Drunk Sports podcast, Ari shared a very questionable story of him willingly exposing himself to a minor.
I was at my friend's house. She's a lesbian, single
What?
mother. And she goes, I want to go to the bathroom. She goes, and she has a 5-year-old. She goes, can she watch you pee? Because she needs to see what a penis looks like before it's too.
What?
Yeah.
What?
She doesn't want the first penis she sees to be like the
The
first
one going into her mouth?
Yeah.
Dude, why would she choose yours?
I know. But this is what she said. She was like, why is it out?
Actually committing a crime. Crap.
And I was like,
Hold on.
Oh, wait, she
You let the
watched?
kid watch you pee? I know.
You let the kid watch you pee?
You gotta start with the story. Where have you been with this?
Did you let her shake it off?
No, but then she went to touch it. I was like, crossing a line.
What?
Can't touch it.
How old is she?
Hold on.
Even a bunch of edgy comedians are listening to this story in total shock and keep asking him over and over if this is fake. But Ari reassures everyone that this was a true story. If that's the story Ari told, you know it's probably worse. You just let a 5-year-old watch you pee? Yeah, right. Where is Chris Hansen when you need him?
Yeah, we need Chris Hansen right now.
Ari being so reckless with his words, it was only a matter of time before he crossed a line that would have serious ramifications. And he did that on
And why is he sat there talking about
January
it?
26th, 2020, the day NBA legend Kobe Bryant along with his 13-year-old daughter Gianna when their private helicopter suddenly failed, crashing into the Santa Monica Mountains. When the news broke, the entire world was in shock. Kobe is one of the best basketball players of all time. Plus, he was a family man who gave back to underserved communities just as much as he gave to the NBA. While millions of people were mourning the loss of the legend, tweeting their raw emotions, Ari's take erupted with backlash. 4 hours after the reports of the death of Kobe and Gigi, Ari posted a tweet reading, "Kobe Bryant, 23 years too late today. He got away with grape because all the Hollywood liberals who attack comedy enjoy rooting for the Lakers more than they dislike R-word. Big ups to the hero who forgot to gas up his chopper. I hate the Lakers. What a great day. F the Lakers." After catching a huge wave of criticism
this is the wrong time
from his tweet, he shortly doubled down with a video.
As I know, there's always a lot of hate, pain in the world, and there's always a bunch of terrible stories. And every once in a while, there's a good story. Good story comes out. The guy who got away with it got his today. Kobe Bryant is a god. I'm here in
Why
Charlotte.
is he celebrating like Hassan?
The home of the team that originally drafted him. Maybe he wouldn't have raped that chick in Denver if he had stayed in Charlotte with the Hornets.
Most people had no idea who Ari Shaffir was. Now he was known as the guy who mocked Kobe Bryant's death. The comedy community addressed his comments.
You know, there were children that, and so you can't, it's just, that's too much to joke about. It's too much. I was like, it's too much.
Doing fucked up jokes, I don't judge you. But the nastiness in that video hours after this, there was nothing funny about it. There was no intent to be funny. I was disgusted by the shit.
He thinks it's funny in the head, man.
I think that his tweet, when I look at it, I go, I would not have said that. But Ari is consistent with that bit that he does, where when somebody dies, he says the most fucked up thing he can say about the person.
Comedians were torn because they love Ari
Why is he glazing him?
want to defend free speech and comedy, but also understand that this tweet was not a joke, it wasn't funny, and it was definitely bad timing. Just 2 days after Ari posted his controversial tweets, he had a scheduled performance in New York City at the Kips Bay venue. Once Kobe fans discovered this, they began threatening the venue, leading the club to cancel his performance. The venue even filed an aggravated report with the police due to the seriousness of the threats. In response to his show being forcibly canceled, Shaffir made a post to his Instagram claiming that it was just a joke, trying to justify this as harmless trolling. He pointed back to his history of making crude comments about recently passed celebrities. Every time a beloved celebrity dies, I post some horrible stuff about them. I've been doing it for years now. I like destroying gods, and right when a famous person dies, they're at their most worshipped. Even though he released this half apology on Instagram, Ari was still dropped by his talent agent.
That is not an apology.
Yet still to this day, Ari Shaffir is not sorry.
That you do not regret whatever it was, a tweet or a story or something about Kobe.
You gotta be true to your fucking stand-up, man.
I mean, dude, it's insane.
I see all these people whenever some celebrity wrenching their fucking clothes publicly, making it about themselves.
Even Steve will disagree with this.
Always nauseating to me.
The situation did momentarily thwart his career, but then it helped him. While the pandemic was in full effect, comedians were being criticized and canceled seemingly every week for their edgy jokes that people on the internet did not approve of. However, this started an uprising of free speech defenders who wanted to show their support for comedians. As the world became more politically correct, the demand for edgy and unhinged comedy became stronger than ever, which birthed the Skankfest comedy tour. Skankfest was like one of those rock star fantasy camps for comedians. We were surrounded by some of the best and darkest comics and the fans that love them. Ari Shaffir is one of the most famous acts who has continuously headlined Skankfest since 2016, and the fans encourage him to be as disturbing as possible.
Every comedian gets a huge pop when they walk out on stage. The fans are so eager to hear good jokes all day. It's insane. Especially because every single person within a 10-mile radius of this festival is either on drugs, looking for drugs, aggressively binge drinking, deathly hungover, or a combination of those 4 options, including the comedians.
It's clear that Skankfest is the perfect home for Ari Shaffir, who has been very open about his love for experimenting with drugs. In fact, one of his favorite things to do is give other people drugs
What happened to him?
without their consent,
With the
as he
piano
has
and all.
openly admitted to doing it multiple times. If you've seen my video about Bert Kreischer, you know Ari is no stranger to dosing people or spiking their drinks with drugs without them knowing. Just as a quick recap, one night Bert invited his good friend and fellow comedian Ari Shaffir over to his house to do a podcast. Ari shook Bert's 13 and 15-year-old daughter's hands, walked into the podcast room where they were going to share some drinks. Ari decided to secretly slip a capsule of MDMA, aka Molly, into
And he just mess up.
Bert's drink without him knowing, to which Bert had a terrible experience on the drug. Bert, as well as many of his comedy peers, told Ari that what he did was reckless and genuinely concerning. But others, such as Joe Rogan and Nikki Glazer, thought it was hilarious. But this wasn't the first nor the last time Ari would admit to committing this crime.
But that's not the only time you dose somebody, though.
No, it's been a few times. It's been a few times, but I'm actually really good at dosing. I've just had a couple like overboards, but really everybody had a good time. I'll stand by it. No one really had a bad time on it. Just you gotta share it with your girlfriend or wife afterwards. They get pissed.
But it's even worse when you see him do it with your own eyes. During an appearance on the Legion of Skanks live podcast alongside Shane Gillis, Dan Soder, Luis Gomez, and Big J Okerson, Luis Gomez hatched a
On
plan
live
to
TV.
dose Ari's drink at the start of the show and revealed to him later on that this was a prank.
I gave it to my employee. I was like, make sure this gets in Ari Shaffir's beer. Okay, just put a tab of acid in his beer. Now, I f***ed up and I told Shane, thinking that Shane, you know, look, I get that he's on Team Ari, but at the same time, it's pretty goddamn funny to dose Ari Shaffir with acid on Legion of Skanks.
Yeah.
Let us just do it.
All right.
Let us do I assumed that Shane would just let it happen because that is the absolute funniest scenario.
Ari soon found out about Luis Gomez's plan, and instead of pouring the drink out, he decided to slide the drug drink to fellow comedian Big J Okerson. You might be thinking Ari was just getting someone back for drugging him, but what Ari did was dose someone who suffers from anxiety and does not take acid. And as you can imagine, Big J wasn't very happy about the situation. Many of the die-hard comedy fans see Ari as a beacon
What is actually wrong with this guy?
of hope in an overly sensitive PC society. A man who is unafraid to push the boundaries of comedy. They don't take what he says on podcasts seriously because he is simply just joking. Others see him as a self-admitted criminal, potential predator, and borderline psychopath who excuses his suspicious behavior as just jokes. But Ari is not the only successful comedian whose behavior is destroying them. Bert Kreischer is on the same path of self-destruction,
This
but in
guy
a
too.
totally different way.
Yeah, I think
Check
that-
that video out next.